Hi. Well, I still can't figure out how to use my iMac for camera, so I think I have to have the actual camera. So I'm going to use the iPad to take the videos. Anyways, I thought I'd do a story time, and it's about when I was a kid. I have severe learning disabilities, and when I was a kid, they didn't have to educate children past grade 6 in Ontario. And my mom managed to get me into special ed. I failed grade 5 and did that twice. And then my mom managed to get me into a special ed class for grade 7 and 8, where I sat there with 7 other students and repeated the spellings of words over and over and over again all day. It was awful. We were treated like monkeys. And then they were going to just kick me out of the school system. So my mom looked around and she found a boarding school in the USA, and she found she could get funding from the government if they could prove my learning disabilities were severe enough. Well, that wasn't a problem because my learning disabilities were pretty severe. I also had this eyesight problem, but my parents were ignoring it. I was just wearing thick glasses, and they were just kind of going with the thick glasses and ignoring it. And I didn't have a hearing problem. I had really good hearing at that age. But I went to the boarding school, and it was a residential school. That's what it was called, a residential school. And when some people hear that now, they just cringe because of all of the information that's come out about residential schools for Aboriginal people. The Aboriginal peoples were terribly abused at the residential schools. Now, we weren't abused, but we were kind of in lockdown. But we managed to get away with a lot. I managed to save up for a bus ticket with my allowances. I didn't spend them on any candy or anything. And I saved up and I ran home. I was worried about my mom because she was divorced. And in those days, divorce was pretty rare. And I wanted to be with my mom. So my parents, the police were involved and my parents were involved, and everybody was waiting for me. They knew that I had gotten on a bus, and they were waiting for me to arrive in Toronto. And I arrived in Toronto, and I got a backlash like you would not believe. People were so angry. But my mom hugged me, and that's what I needed. I needed a hug from my mom. And then I went back, and I tried to stay strong. And I hung out with friends. There were 2 of us in a room. My first roommate was a kleptomaniac, and I pawned her off on another girl. And she got the klepto. And I worked hard. I wanted to make my mom proud. I wanted to make my parents proud. I knew my dad didn't love me, and he had hurt me terribly. The sexual abuse and the physical abuse and the verbal abuse. He had hurt me terribly, but I wanted to make him proud. I thought maybe then he wouldn't hurt me. But I was wrong. But I worked really hard. And my parents got good notes for me. and I won a lot of awards. And they were, I look back on them and they weren't big awards. They were like best speller and hardest worker and best mathematics, and they were silly things, but I worked my butt off to get them, and I got them. Tried hardest this week. Worked at social studies. Yes, I worked at social studies. And they did a lot of Canadian content. Well, a little bit of Canadian content, because they had a lot of Canadian students who were funded by the government. The school actually closed just a few years ago. They stopped taking Canadian funded students, and then they couldn't keep up with the student population that they needed, because they were too expensive, and they didn't have enough Americans. And Canadians weren't coming in wealthy. We were coming in on funding. So they made a real mistake there and lost the school. And it was bought up by a company that treats people with chronic addictions. So I don't know what it's like now. We were joking, some of us, that we hope they found the back end, because people could go back there and do their addictions. We used to go to the back end and smoke pot and drink and that sort of thing. It wasn't fenced off. And we got a lot of stuff in there. For a closed school, it was amazing how we managed to make it open. We got a lot in there. We were pretty tricky gooses. And we got a lot in there. I miss my high school days. It was tough. I didn't have a family there. My family was broken up, and most of the kids there, their families were together, so they didn't really understand. But they were my friends. They were the only friends I'd ever had. I'd never had friends in school when I was at home. My sister avoided me and told her friends that I was a weirdo and that I was a retard. Those were her words, so I'm just repeating her words. And I had no friends. And at the boarding school, I had friends. And so I miss that, because I don't have a lot of friends now. I have a few, but I'm kind of lonely. And it affects the anorexia when you're lonely. You're so isolated, you just do anything. But I don't know. Anyways, that's my story time. I have lots more. And some of them aren't quite as, me mulling things over and remembering. Some of them are quite funny, actually, so. And this one was quite funny because we did some pretty wild things. But it's a memory that's both tragic and happy at the same time. Okay, now remember, if you like our channel, please push that subscribe button. We need subscribers. Thank you. Bye-bye.